evening. It's for rugby clubs, okay? And it's an RFU webinar, but what it's actually about is the Football Foundation Grass Pitch Maintenance Fund, okay? And we'll touch on that as we move through. But to be clear, this is for rugby clubs. This is an RFU operated webinar, but the fund we're talking about is the Football Foundation Grass Pitch Maintenance Fund. In terms of attendance this evening, in terms of the most important people, yourselves, then you are no doubt sitting there wearing one or more of these hats. We're keen that the people who are going to be the main contact for the application are on this webinar. Also, we're aware club committee members may well be on, and also absolutely grounds volunteers, so people from clubs that look after pitches, and we'll be able to bring the technical elements to the webinar and the understanding of that. And as I say, you may well have one, two, or even three of those hats on. In terms of from our side at the RFU, I'm Ted Mitchell, the RFU National Facility Development Manager, and I'm going to kind of be hosting the webinar this evening, and you'll be hearing quite a lot from me throughout, but I'm joined also by Kieran Spencer. Kieran, who heads up our Honda Rugby Grounds Connected programme, and Kieran, you're going to be hearing from Kieran at different times throughout the hour, and Kieran's going to be keeping a close eye on questions in the chat and bringing them into the webinar if needed on a couple of occasions as we progress through the evening. And as usual, joined by our webinar guru, Alex Thompson. Alex is in the background producing things this evening, and you'll be hearing from Alex when we do a couple of polls that we've got, that we just have a little bit of interaction with you. As well as yourselves as attendees and RFU staff, we also have a couple of other people here to help move things along. We have our great friend Andy Clay from the Football Foundation, and Andy will again be there in the chat, and if there's anything Andy can help with from a Football Foundation perspective, he'll be diving in and doing that. We also have Simon Johnson from the Grounds Management Association, and Simon is a pitch advisor as part of that program and the key account manager for the RFU. So great to have Simon here, and he can certainly pick up any questions in the first part of the webinar that we might have around pitch power, pitch reports, and anything from the grounds maintenance side. And then, as usual, we're joined by a number of members from the RFU facility development team, names that you'll no doubt be familiar with, including Max Pridmore, Adam Blackford, Stu Eads, and Rick Bruin, as well as obviously Kieran himself. So hopefully behind the scenes and different people you're going to be hearing from, we've got most bases covered for this evening. Okay, so the intent for the webinar is basically to provide some background to you about this Grass Pitch Maintenance Fund, which we've invited you to be part of. Okay. As well as that, we want to talk through an indicative timeline so you can understand exactly when things are going to happen and the schedule as we move through the application process. The main bulk of tonight really is to talk through and explain as clearly as we can how you as a rugby club can make a successful application to this fund. And the main bulk of the webinar will be literally looking through the online application form and talking through it step by step. The other key intent for this evening is to answer questions that you have in the webinar chat, as I've said, so that if there's anything as we go that you're seeking clarification on, we can pick it up as we go. Anything that you do raise we're not able to answer tonight, we'll obviously pick up offline away from the webinar this evening. Okay, so the first thing, just to kick things off, I'm just going to hand over to Alex, who's going to run through a quick poll.
Okay, so you should see in front of you now, I've launched the poll. It should have popped up on your screen, and we sort of want to know, how confident do you feel to move forward your club's application for this? Is it 1, not confident at all the way to 6, you're extremely confident, you think, yes, we're going to get this before we start. So anything and how you're feeling, you know, is it 1, not confident, all the way to 6 on the rating, extremely confident. So I can see a lot of people are getting in there now, putting in their responses. If for any reason you cannot see it, then please just put your answer into the chat so you can continue. It may have gone behind your screen or something. So the majority of people have now done it. I'm just going to give it a last little chance for people to respond. And I'm going to close it now. So I'll share those results with you. So Ted, what it's looking like is we've got a few people not so confident with ones and twos, quite a lot in the middle, but the majority is sort of feeling pretty confident, but not all the way to extremely confident with it.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. So thank you very much indeed for taking part in that. And hopefully what that's going to do, we'll check back in with that at the end, and it will help us get an understanding of what we've covered, how well it's landed, and what work we need to do off the back of this webinar to get everyone into those 5 or 6s, if indeed we don't achieve that by the end of the night. So thanks very much, and we'll move on. So one thing you might be asking yourself is, why has my club been invited? Why are we here? So just to provide a bit of background about that. So first of all, you'll be an individual or a club that is engaged with our Honda Rugby Grounds Connected program. Okay, that might be that you've in the past had a visit from Keith Kent. It might be that you've attended one of our events that we've started to run in the summer, or webinars over the last few years. And as well as engaging with that, you've also engaged with the new grounds maintenance advisors from the GMA. And what that would have created for you is a pitch power report. Okay, so yes, you've engaged with us and shown an interest in pitch improvements, but you've also accessed a pitch power report through the GMA, and you'll come on to see why having accessed that report is so crucial for the application that we're going to run through. The second thing that's really important is that we recognise that improving your pitch provision will make a difference to your rugby offer. So what we're saying there is, yes, you want to improve your pitch, but also that it's going to enable you to make a difference at the club. It's going to enable you to have less matches cancelled, less training sessions postponed, to create more capacity so you can do more and get more people engaged in the game. So first of all, you definitely want to improve your pitches. Second of all, we know that's going to have an impact at your club. The third reason you've been invited is that you've been prioritised on a county by county basis by your RFU constituent body. So these are the county RFUs that we work with really closely to help establish priorities and clubs that we want to invite and be involved in different programs. And just to give you the context, you are one of 81 clubs from across the country that have been invited into this application window, that have been invited to attend this webinar this evening. So one of 81 clubs, a good number, but still quite an exclusive group that are going to get access to make an application. Okay, so the basics. This is really important, just to try and get across some real basics of this fund. So first of all, just to stress again, this is Football Foundation funding. Okay, this is not funding that you're going to receive directly from the RFU. Okay, it's a Football Foundation and RFU partnership that is ring fenced and is allocated towards rugby clubs, but it's managed by it's managed by the RFU on behalf of the Football Foundation. Okay, that little asterisk is just there to remind me to say what the webinar tonight is designed to do is really share with you what we think are the key points of this process and application. Okay, what the Football Foundation have on their website is some absolutely fantastic detailed guidance. Okay, so please use that. It's really easy to access, and it will provide a lot more detail than we're going to cover tonight. But what we're trying to do is pick out the most salient points, so we can be extremely clear with you before you start on the application journey, that you understand the fundamentals and the basics of the application itself. Okay, the next thing that's really important to point out is that there are two key strands to this funding opportunity. One is grant funding to support delivery of your pitch maintenance programs. Okay, and the second one is grant funding to support the purchase of maintenance machinery. Okay, and you as a club will have been identified and prioritized through Pitch Power for one of those strands. Okay, so this isn't something that as a club you're going to choose, you're going to select. You'll have already been prioritized, and you've been invited on the basis through Pitch Power and for the reasons we've said, for either grant funding towards the delivery of pitch maintenance, or grant funding to support the purchase of maintenance machinery. Okay, and you will have received an email from your case manager that has explained that to you. There's another way as we talk through the evening that will become clear to you. But again, if that's something that you're not sure about, then really please feel free. It's probably not something in the chat, but something to pick up offline with the case manager, just to get absolute clarity on which of these elements of this fund you've been prioritized to apply for. Okay, but we are going to be talking through the application process for both, because effectively they're very, very similar, and then there's just a couple of differences as we move along. The other thing there, just to stress, is that I've underlined grant. There's a couple of questions in the lead up to the webinar just asking, is this a grant? Is it a loan? Just to be completely clear, what we're talking about tonight are grants. Okay, this is money that will be given to the club. Okay, these are not loans that you're going to need to pay back or anything like that. Just to stress, and I keep coming back to this, the recommendations within the Pitch Power report will dictate whether or not your club is being prioritised for pitch maintenance or for maintenance machinery. There are some very, very unique circumstances that a very small number of clubs have actually been prioritised for both. And again, if you're one of those clubs, we'll have been in touch to explain that to you and the reasons for that. Okay, so there's some basics. The next question I'm sure you're all wondering is how much funding is available. Okay, so again, I'll touch on this now and then this will become clearer as I share more information about the application process. So for the maintenance grant, okay, we're talking about a figure of 14,400 per pitch spread over 6 years. Okay, so this is for a specific number of pitches that within the Pitch Power report have been identified as basic standard pitches. Okay, and within that report, you'll be able to see that for your club. And the grant funding is 14,400 spread over 6 years. Okay, and again, I'll elaborate on how the whole 6-year element of that works as we work through the application form. If you've been prioritised for a machinery grant, the grant figure there can be up to £24,000 with no lower limit. Okay, so it could be quite a small piece of machinery that is probably nearer the kind of 4,000 or 5,000 mark, but in some circumstances it can be higher, up to a maximum of £24,000. Okay, and again, the type of machinery will be dictated by what has been already identified within your Pitch Power report. Okay, also to flag at this point, the machinery grant does come with a requirement of 25% for the club to make a contribution. Okay, so in the example of a maximum grant, you'd be looking at machinery with a value of approximately £32,000 that the club would contribute 8 and the Football Foundation 24, or on a much smaller level, a £4,000 piece of equipment that the Football Foundation can contribute 3,000 to, and the club will be expected to contribute 1,000. Okay, and again, I keep going on about this, but it's really important. The number of pitches that are relevant to this for your club and the type of equipment is based on the recommendations already established in your Pitch Power report. So we've covered how much funding is available. The next question is, when does this funding become available? Okay, so I just want to run through a pretty basic timeline to hopefully give you a scope and a feel for the timeline that this is going to roll out over the next couple of months. So tonight, 7th of February, is the introductory webinar, is very much the starting point. And then straight away tomorrow, the application portal goes live. Okay, now that's not to panic you and make you think, oh my gosh, we need to do this tomorrow. Absolutely not. There's a good period of time for you to do this. But equally, some people, having heard this tonight, might want to crack straight on with it whilst it's fresh in the mind, and we didn't want to stop them from doing that. So you're here tonight, and then the application portal will open tomorrow. Okay, you will then have until the 1st of April, so nearly a couple of months, to actually complete the application. Okay, and when we come onto it, hopefully you'll see that it's relatively straightforward stuff, and we think that that's plenty of time. Ultimately, we're not going to wait till April the 1st to assess all the applications that we receive. So the sooner you apply and the sooner you submit your application, the sooner we'll be able to assess it, and the sooner the money will be awarded at the back end of the process. So around about the end of February, we will start to assess applications and start them moving through the system. And then what we're aiming to do certainly is during May and June, that should be the back end of when award letters are actually issued and the money is awarded to the clubs. Okay, so we'll touch back in on that right at the end, but just to be clear, today is the start. Tomorrow the portal goes live, a couple of months to actually apply, and we've got lots of ways to support you between now and then. And really, we'll be assessing as soon as we start to receive completed applications in the system. Okay, last couple of things before we take a little breather. What can the maintenance element of this grant be spent on? Okay, so the eligible items are effectively an enhanced maintenance program at your club. Okay, so the purchase of materials, so more seed, better seed, different seed. Again, fertilizer, more fertilizer, new fertilizer, different fertilizer, better fertilizer. It can be used to hire machinery. So as a grounds volunteer, you might have the skills and the qualifications to use certain bits of machinery that you can bring in, and the cost of hiring those machines is an eligible element within the grant. And also to pay contractors. So there may well, within the maintenance program and the recommendations, be works that you actually can pay a third party to come in, for example, verti-draining or earthquaking, and that is an eligible cost. But just to stress, the eligible items will be spelled out within the recommendations in the pitch power report. Okay, things that are not eligible are more significant pitch, what we probably call capital pitch improvements. So the installation of drainage. Okay, that's not maintenance, it's actually a more significant intervention into pitch improvement. Proper work on pitch leveling. Okay, effectively anything that isn't maintenance could not be covered. Anything that we would say is existing maintenance, so stuff you're already doing, like some mowing the grass, that wouldn't be an eligible cost because by definition you're already doing that. And the other thing just to stress is what you're not able to do is allocate volunteer time and pay the grant funding against that. So if someone's volunteering, for example, for a couple of hours to operate machinery that you've hired, you wouldn't be able to say, well, commercially that would cost 100 quid and therefore we're going to claim that back. Okay, we recognize volunteer time is a key part of this and key part of the club's contribution. So whistle stop tour of what's eligible within the maintenance, and it's even more straightforward with the machinery. What's eligible: buying new machinery, buying second-hand machinery with a couple of caveats, but ultimately the pitch power report will be really clear on what machinery has been recommended for your club. Ineligible items is anything else, anything that isn't the purchase of machinery. Okay, so hopefully that's pretty straightforward. So take a breather, and I'll in a moment take a glass of water. So the summary so far, conscious we've already gone through a lot of information, and this is going to be the pace of things so we can get through, but please don't forget this is going to be recorded and shared, and we're going to share the slides so you can check back in at your leisure. So this fund is a partnership between the RFU, ourselves, and we want to work with you and talk you through that, and a funding partnership with the Football Foundation, who are going to be the guys that ultimately you get the paperwork from that says you've got the money. There are two strands to it, either maintenance or machinery, and in 99% of cases you will be one or the other of those, and you will know that. And if you're not sure, it's really important, so check in with us away from the webinar and we'll just confirm that with you. The pitch power report is pivotal, and it will outline eligible items whichever strand you're in. The maintenance will always be 14,400 per pitch. Okay, it's not something that you apply for different values depending on what you need. It's 14,400. Feels like a funny number, but when you come to see how we break that down over 6 years, it will probably make a little bit more sense. And then the final thing, just to check in on one of the key points, is that the maximum, and I can't stress enough, that's the maximum machinery grant is £24,000, but with no lower limit. So there's also an opportunity here for some clubs to access some smaller pieces of machinery. Okay, so at that point, I am going to take a glass of water and invite Kieran just to check in to see if there's anything rearing its head in the chat that he would like to share with us.
No, thank you, Ted. Good evening. There are some clubs and some people on this call I know very well, and there are some that I've never met before. So thank you for your attendance. There's some really good questions in the chat. If we haven't got to your question, I've been trying to keep on top of them as we go. I'll try and answer a few of them now and call them out. Just to reference, we will go through the chat post webinar and pick up any questions that we don't think we've answered. Some of them will also be answered as part of the Football Foundation FAQ, and some of you are asking questions that will be covered before the end of this webinar. So again, please do, if I've not managed to answer them in the chat at this point, there are other opportunities. One good question was around the slides. Will they be made available? Yes, a version of the slides will be sent out to you post webinar, so we'll get that done within a couple of days of the webinar finishing. It's a really good question, Ted, actually, that we hadn't considered. But the around 15-a-side pitches versus age grade pitches. So can we get some support with our age grade pitches? The simple answer to that is this is a finite pot of money, so we have had to prioritise. So pitch power and the grass pitch maintenance fund are prioritised for full size posted pitches is how we're describing it. So you will not see any recommendations for age grade pitches within your pitch power report. They're not monitored, and this fund is not eligible for those. However, you could say that the recommendations within your report would be eligible across the entirety of your site. So so there is some comfort in that. There's some questions here. We're worried about money. Is there enough money for everyone? And how many clubs that are invited on this call will complete? So again, later in the webinar, I will say, if you are on this call, you have been solicited by your local facility development team and your CB. So best in the world, we're looking for reasons not to award this money if you're already on this call. So the only thing that will stop you is the strength of your application. We're going to come into what the application looks like shortly. But again, essentially, if you've been invited, there is a good chance that you are going to get support through this program. Good question that came in around wanting to start pitch maintenance in April to try and catch the growing season. So again, I think this is reference the timescales that were presented. You're going to see it's a 6-year tapered fund. You're going to see this very shortly. So there is no expectation that you spend that money for this growing season. We appreciate that, again, the timelines we've presented may not be able to hit your first lot of maintenance for this season, but we're talking about a 6-year fund here. So from the time of award, you've got 12 months to spend that first year. So it may not be that you catch this first growing season. So we'll be really upfront about that. But you will probably, if it's not this one, you'll be catching the October one and maybe your next spring renovation. So please do consider it that way. We know it will be tight. And a couple of questions in the chat. This will be the last one I pick up now around people not understanding it or not having seen their pitch power report. So some of you are, again, aware you might not be the grounds person or you might not be linked. If you do not currently have sight of your pitch power report, I would encourage you to check in with your case manager or your regional pitch advisor for your area. We'll be sharing some contact details for those people at the end of the webinar. And again, slides will be shared afterwards. So if you don't catch it at that point, you will have that copy of who the relevant person is to chase up on your report. But again, I would suggest that 95% of the clubs on this call will already have a pitch power inspection have taken place and a report in place. So please don't worry about access to your report. We'll make sure you get that because you will need it to be able to do the application, which I think Ted is going to take us into next. So I think that's where we are. There's been a few more questions while I've been talking that I'll try and pick up now, but you'll hear from me a little bit later in the webinar. Thank you.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you, Kieran. And just to stress on the timing, we will do everything we can to move things through as quickly as we can. We're just conscious, obviously, that ultimately the third party here, the Football Foundation, who are also committed to move things through, but we don't want to make promises around the speed at which things can happen when actually there's another organisation that has a key role in terms of processing and awarding. But we'll certainly do what we can to move them through as quickly as we can. Okay, great. So the next bit, really, we now focus on the actual application, the online application form that you're all going to have to work through. Apologies again, this is pretty dry. I'll try and explain it as kind of efficiently and as I can. There'll be bits, I'm sure it is pretty straightforward, but there'll be bits that probably first time don't necessarily land, and as such, that again is the beauty of this being on demand, so you can go back and check in and really pick them up again. So the first thing to say, that is the URL that everyone will need to visit, footballfoundation.org.uk. And then the way we're going to do this is just lots of screen grabs of the application form itself and the web page. So you'll eventually get to something that looks pretty much like that. And the first thing you need to do is just create an account for the Football Foundation. And as it says there, that's literally a 2-minute job with some key information. Okay, once you've done that, you'll continue to scroll through the web page, and you will need to find the Get Your Pitch Match Fit image and link. And again, you just need to click on there, Improve Your Grass Pitch. That again will take you through to another page. And again, there's a little bit of information here and different funds, and the one we're talking about is the Grass Pitch Maintenance Fund. Okay, so really straightforward. You've got the URL, you effectively click through a few things to get to the actual element and part of the web page that we need and the website that we need, and open your application. And as it says there, start the application process. So you click on this and you'll be confronted by a page that looks exactly like this. So the way I'm going to do this is just going to run through. Some of it is really simple, just basically tick yes, no. Some of it needs a little bit more explanation, and I'll try and pace it so we spend more time on the bits that are most important. So first up, have you read the small grant guidance notes on the Football Foundation website? Have a read. There's some really useful information in there, and obviously click yes. Now you've heard us talk about pitch power. So this is where that bit comes to life. This is where you'll need to put in there your pitch power assessment report ID. Okay, so just to pick up on what Kieran said, if you've not seen your club's pitch power report, don't panic. Okay, as Kieran said, we know that 90 to 95% of clubs on this call have got one. Okay, so that's fine, and if for whatever reason that's not come across your desk yet, we will make sure that you get that information. There is a small number of people that don't have one yet, and there's a particular reason for that. We know who you are, so again, don't panic. We will work with you to make sure you get one of these to help you work through the application process. So there's no panic there. But ultimately, you know you will need it, and what you will do is you will put the 4-digit ID number in there. Okay, and then what that will do is really take care of quite a lot of the application form for you. It will preload and upload information from that report into the application portal. So first of all, as you can see there, it will upload the name of the venue, the site reference, and the sport. Okay, so already this is doing the work for you because it's already in the Pitch Power report. You'll click through there, and then what you can see is halfway down that page is the name of a couple of pieces of machinery. So that's the, if you like, the one way in which you can tell which of these funds you've been prioritized for. So if your Pitch Power report has identified machinery, okay, that means you have been prioritized for the machinery element of the fund. Okay, if that's blank, that means you've been prioritized for the maintenance. Okay, so that's just, again, you should know that anyway, but if you don't, that's another way to check in on that. So if machinery is there and you have been prioritized for the machinery element, you will tick that box. Okay, the machinery and equipment. If there is no machinery in there and you've been prioritized for the maintenance element of the fund, you will click the grass pitch maintenance fund box. Okay, as simple as that. For the very small number of clubs that are actually going to be doing both, you will need to make 2 separate applications, and we'll pick that up with you and talk you through that. Okay, so to be clear, nobody should be ticking both these boxes. If you decide you want to take a bit of a flare and give it a shot because you quite fancy applying to the other, it will just simply be rejected. Okay, so make sure you understand which one is the correct one for you to tick and tick it. Okay, if you do anything other than that, it's just going to cause a delay and a problem and a glitch in the system, because ultimately it's going to fail, be rejected, and we have to start all over again. Okay, and then the next question is a simple question about, you know, are you basically a community rugby club? I'm just asking you to confirm that you're not a Premiership, Championship, or an Allianz Premier 15s club. Okay, so the next thing again is a lot of preloaded information. So please tell us about your organisation. The rugby clubs that are eligible for this are preloaded onto this drop-down menu. Okay, so unless again there is an anomaly or an oversight, your rugby club will be named on the drop-down list as per the arrow there. Okay, please take the time to just make sure you get the right club, because it does create a problem further down the line when we need to match things like account numbers, account names, freeholds, and things like that. If the names of the clubs don't match, that creates a bit of a problem. So please select the correct rugby club from the drop-down box, and then what that will do is autofill your constituent body, so which county RFU you're affiliated to, and it will even also not only add the organisation name, it will actually already preload from the Pitch Power report your organisation address. Okay. And then the next thing you need to do is identify a primary contact for the application. Okay, and that can be anybody from the club that you would like it to be. Now, one of the things we'll flag further down the line, when it comes to actually accepting the money and signing that off on behalf of the webinar, on behalf of the club, then we will need those people to be committee members. Okay, but at this point, okay, you just need to identify someone that's going to be the main contact for the information flow in and out of the club and ourselves. Okay, so the bits we've covered so far are pretty straightforward. It's pretty much yes, no, tick box, and it auto fills for itself. But this is the first key question. So this is the first one I'd say, take a breath, have a look, and really take your time to make the best job of this question as you can. So this is something in the invitation we sent to the club that we asked you to start to look at already. So hopefully you've got some prompts on that. And it's a question about what the Football Foundation call tackling inequalities. Okay, so certain areas they have identified that they want to help develop sport within, and in our case, rugby, women and girls, disability, lower socioeconomic groups, and diverse communities. Okay, so you need to identify at least one of those, and you may identify multiple. And again, hopefully to get you thinking along these lines, we've already given you some prompts information within your acceptance information to the RFU. We then have our first open question, where effectively it's just asking you to write lots of information to tell a story about what's going to be going on at your club. Okay, and this is something that we want you to take your time with, and we want to try and help you to do. And we've got to strike a balance. We want each club to have ownership of this information. We don't want to literally write it for you, but what we would like to do is give you some prompts to help you to give a structure and to help you provide the level of detail that the Football Foundation are looking for. So this hopefully is going to be something that will really use as a slide when you get the slide deck through, and you can use as reference. But effectively, to create that information for there, we're suggesting you break that down into 5 key statements around 5 key things that the Football Foundation have said they're really keen to understand more about. So the first statement we think you should start to look at is just an outline, the kind of activity at the club. So we currently have however many men's teams, however many women's teams, and however many age grades teams, okay? And we also operate, and you can add anything else that you might do that would be outside those traditional parts of the game. Okay, the second statement that then you could start to pull together as a club is to say we're looking to impact, and whichever ones of the ones you've ticked from the drop downs, i.e. women and girls, disability, lower socioeconomic groups, etc., with your pitch improvement project. Okay, so again, you create a bit of a statement there that's really simple. The third statement we think that, again, to use as a bit of a prompt, is that we are looking to grow participation by, and again, choose the relevant ones for you: school club links, involvement in RFU programs, coaching in the community, free club taster sessions, whatever it is, the how, about how you want to grow those participations, okay? And again, that will give a coherent answer and a structure to this particular question. Who you're going to be working with. So again, a suggested statement is that as a club, we will be working with, and again, choose the relevant people that you're going to be working with. Is it schools? Is it the community? Is it different community groups or the sports? Is it the RFU? Just identify any partners locally that you're going to be working with. And then the final thing the Football Foundation are really keen on is just a little bit around the vision for 2 years' time. So this example, the statement, we're saying something like, we hope that in 2 years' time, the participation will have grown in these areas and the club has become more sustainable, inclusive as a result. Okay, so what we're trying to do there is just break it down rather than just have free text to write anything. We're trying to focus on some key prompts that the Football Foundation are saying to us are really important. And then by creating those separate statements, almost rolling that into one answer into that box. So I'm not going to run through this word for word. This is just an amalgam of those 5 statements to sound coherent, to then be inserted and cut and paste into that question about tackling inequalities. Okay, so just to stress, the first key question. The others really are pretty straightforward. This is the one to take a moment and come back to Kieran's comments are really, as long as you work with us, you buy into what we're saying, you will be successful in terms of achieving this grant. And this is one of those areas we need you just to put a bit of time aside to get it right, to demonstrate the impact it's going to have at your club. Okay. Now, as soon as we're through key question 1, we are on to key question 2. Okay, and I promise there are only 2 key questions. So this is about tenure. Okay, and again, we ran a pilot for this fund with a small number of clubs, about 20 clubs, and one of the key learnings from that was we want to give much clearer guidance around tenure and be really clear with you guys as to what it is you need to do in order to satisfy the requirements of the Football Foundation. Okay, so the question is for you to identify what tenure you have at the site where the project will be delivered. Okay, so what we actually mean by that is on the pitch or pitches that will benefit from this funding. Okay, so for the vast majority of clubs, the whole site will either be freehold or leasehold or whatever. But if you are a club where the particular pitch is dealt with in a different way, and that is the information you'll need to present within this response. If you have a situation that will be very rare that this is going to cover 2 pitches and one is a freehold and one is a leasehold, then you'll have to provide both pieces of information. Okay, and this again is something that the Football Foundation are very keen for us to bottom out, so we need to get right. So just to run through the options here in terms of the kind of icon that you will click on. So freehold, okay, easy. If you have the freehold to the pitches, you own them, great, tick that box, and further down the line, and we'll show you where you'll need to just upload proof that you have freehold on that site. Okay, job done, straightforward. If you have typically a lease or a license that lasts for at least 6 years, then again, that's absolutely fine, as long as within that lease, it states somewhere that you have the license to carry out the work, okay, which most leases of that duration would have, okay, some acknowledgement that the club can carry out maintenance works on the pitches that are included in the lease or license, okay. So the second one is if you've got a lease that's more than 6 years, then as long as there is something within that lease that says you can do this work, then you're fine and you're happy and you're in the clear and you can tick that box. Okay, for clubs that have just between 1 and 6 years, okay, so a shorter lease, that also is fine. However, Football Foundation require those clubs to download, it's really easy and it's on the website, the landlord and tenant form, and you will need to submit that along with your application, okay? And your landlord will need to sign that to basically say they're comfortable with you accessing a grant and spending that money on the pitch that they lease or license to you, okay? And then the fourth option is if all else fails, if you don't have a lease or a license or there's any issues with that, you can simply download a different form. It's a grass pitch maintenance agreement and get your landlord to sign it. Okay, so if all else fails, if this all feels very confusing, get a grass pitch maintenance agreement, get your landlord to sign it, which basically will say that I am happy for the club to access this funding and for them to carry out the works on this pitch or these pitches that the landlord has the freehold to. Okay, so try to explain that as simply as I can. I'll just run through it very quickly again. If you freehold, great. If you have a lease, great, as long as it's got that little nugget in there about being able to do the work. If you've got a short lease of between 1 and 6 years, that's also fine, but we just need you to get that additional form signed. And if you don't have any tenure or you have a problem or complexity in finding the paperwork, then just download the grass pitch maintenance agreement and get it signed by the landlord. If you have to tick none of the above, then you're not going to be able to get the funding here, okay? But we don't believe that anyone should fail on this particular application because they don't have tenure. It's brilliant in that regard, and you'll all know that some funds require significant tenure, but actually the beauty of this is you don't even actually need tenure, you just need the agreement of your landlord to do the work. So that's key question 2. Okay, key question 1 is the tackling inequalities. Key question 2 is about the freehold or the tenure or the lease that you have on the pitch. Okay, moving on, and no doubt that'll be a bit you want to check back in on and double check on. We talked about the pitch power information and preloaded information. The other thing that it will do is it will talk you through the rating of the pitches. Okay, it will talk you through the fact that you have basic pitch or 2 basic pitches or whatever. And then what that will do is then inform the next page. And this is a really key page. It's not complicated, but it's a key page in explaining how this all works. So VAT, simply as possible. If you're not VAT registered, you won't be able to reclaim VAT, no problem. If you are VAT registered, all the clubs in the first window, all our guidance and all our advice is suggesting that you should absolutely be able to reclaim VAT on either the machinery or the maintenance funding, okay? So you absolutely should be ticking yes, and you will be able to recover VAT. What we would say is if you or your treasurer have a specific concern, not just an uncertainty, because our evidence is yes, you can do it, but if you have a specific concern about an inability to reclaim VAT, if you're VAT registered, please let us know, and we will line up some bespoke and specialist VAT advice to help you through that, okay? But the golden rule is if you're not, then you're not going to reclaim VAT. If you are, you absolutely should be able to reclaim VAT. Okay, so how does this whole thing work in terms of the maintenance element of the fund, and where does this random number of 14,400 come from? So the way it works is you get awarded 14,400, and in every year, what we're saying is that the cost to maintain that pitch, to one pitch, is £3,600. Okay, and that's consistent, as you can see on the screen, for the whole 6 years of the funding opportunity. Okay, and in year one, and then the total value over 6 years, 3,600 times 6 is 21,600. So that's the cost to maintain that pitch over 6 years. In year one, the Football Foundation will cover all that cost. Okay, so they will cover the full 3,600, as they will in year two. In year three, the grant that will be released to you is reduced by a third. So the Football Foundation will give you 2,400. And at that point, there'll be an expectation that the club will start to pick up again on some of the maintenance costs, one third of the 3,600, £1,200. That remains the same for year four. And then in year five, there's a change again. The Football Foundation will provide £1,200, and the onus will be on the club to contribute 2,400. Where that takes us to after 6 years is a grant of 14,400 and a club contribution of their existing maintenance and an enhancement to that 7,200 over 6 years. Okay, so I'll just run through that again. 3,600 per pitch, and that's standard across everything. 21,600 over 6 years. In year one, the Football Foundation will fund everything, as they will in year two. In year 3 and 4, that reduces and the club start to make a contribution. In years 5 and 6, the grant level is reduced again. The club contributions increased, and that takes us to the final position of 14,400 and 7,200 from the club. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense, but please take your time to have a look at that and work it through. We then ask you to confirm that the club over that 6-year period is able to provide 7,200, and then it asks you where you might do that. I'm sure for the vast majority of you will just be club funds, but if you actually think that might be something you're going to get a sponsor to do, or you already have a sponsor that supports that, or grant funding, you could put that in there. Okay. And then the only other thing to bear in mind of this part is that we require each club that gets the funding to work with their pitch advisor to do a couple of pitch power reports every year. So just so we can see the impact of the funding, okay? And then at the bottom of the screen, what you'll see there is a summary, okay? An autofill summary. So for this particular fund, which was one pitch, the project value was 21,600. The contribution from the club over 6 years will be 7,200, and the grant from the Football Foundation will be 14,400. If you had 2 basic pitches that came through from Pitch Power, then that will just simply double. Okay, so the contribution will be 14,400 and the grant will be 28,800. And that just confirms that. Supporting documentation, this is just a flag. This is the place that you will upload your freehold, okay, or your lease or your license. This is the point at which you upload that onto the system. Okay, so that's the maintenance. The machinery one is much more straightforward. So the first question, if you're in the machinery grant, so you won't have answered any of those maintenance questions, it'll take you straight here. Just tell us why the pitch maintenance equipment will improve your pitch, okay? And that will come from Pitch Power. It tells you, as we've already talked about, that you can purchase new or previously owned. And then there's a load of questions basically about storage and insurance and things like that. So there is an expectation that if you're getting this machinery that it can be stored safely. And then similar things to confirm it's covered by insurance, it will be used by trained personnel, it will be maintained in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations, and that the specification of the machinery is as per the recommendations in Pitch Power. So really quick, and you can fire through that. The next thing is that it will ask for 2 quotations. Okay. However, we do have an RFU discounted package. And as it says there, if your if equipment matches up to our package or one of the suppliers that we have, you will only need to provide 1 quote. Okay, so 2 quotes for the equipment just to test the market. If it comes through the RFU, we already know that our pricing is sharp enough and satisfies the Football Foundation. So you would only need to supply 1 cost there. And just briefly going to bring Kieran back in just to talk a little bit about our Honda Rugby Grounds Connected discount package. Kieran?
Yes, hello again, everybody. For those of you that are not aware, we have some good friends at Campies who now run this pitch maintenance package for us. So this is the Honda Rugby Grounds Connected pitch maintenance package. In the main, and again, this is a kind of a broad generalization, many of your equipment and machinery recommendations will come down to a tractor to support your work, or creating aeration, and obviously mowing is a really key part of any pitch maintenance regime. So again, friends at Campies have pulled together this package. That kind of gives you the compact tractor, the quadruplayer multi-tiner for getting some air into your pitches, and then obviously the roller mower that you can pull behind. So again, these will be or should be recommendations within your pitch power report in the machinery section. If your pitch advisor has given you those recommendations. What I would like to draw your attention to is the total package cost at the bottom. So total package cost is just over 32,000. For those of you keeping score, our maximum machinery grant for up to 24,000 is 75% of that figure. So potentially, if you're being solicited for a machinery package, you could get the full Honda Rugby Grounds Connected package for the tidy sum of £8,000 club contribution, your 25% contribution. So just something to consider, both if you are in for the machinery grants, but also, again, externally, this is available to all clubs. So it's a relatively good deal for all clubs that are looking at machinery.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kieran. And just to kind of wrap up the section on the application form, this will summarise the total cost of the application for machinery, and it just flags exactly what Kieran was talking about there, that the maximum grant, as we've already shared with you, is 75%. Okay, so covered a huge amount of information there, and hopefully, again, we've kept the rhythm and the pace up quite nicely. I'm sure there are bits of that again you're going to want to go back and look at, and that's the beauty of having this on demand. But we'll take a breather at that moment. You'll be pleased to know that is the whole application form. I would say it's one of those things, actually, as you do it, it's more intuitive, and it probably seems more straightforward if you're doing it than it does us actually trying to explain it, okay? But a key thing to remember is that the vast majority of it is straightforward, huge amount of it preloads, lots of it is just ticking a yes or a no. But the two key things we think that probably need to take a bit of time on, one is the question around tackling inequalities, which the Football Foundation are really interested in terms of the impact of the funding. And the second one is that issue around tenure, which again is actually probably more straightforward than it actually feels when it's explained to you. And we absolutely, this is one fund where I absolutely would say we don't expect tenure to be an issue. Okay, ultimately we'll get there. It's just getting the right paperwork together, and we can help you to do that through the case managers. Do take time to understand how that 6-year funding works. Hopefully, I've explained that quite well, and you can kind of get your head around that. It's one of those things. Again, it does make a bit of sense, but it's the first time anything like that has really ever happened. So hearing it for the first time might be quite a lot to take in. Okay, so time for me to have a glass of water, and our final check-in with Kieran, just to pick up any questions that we're able to right now.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I think I've got to most in the chat, but there's a few that I've parked because it's just easier to talk them through. So there's quite a few asking about reports, the difference between GMA report and Pitch Power report. So you will note Pitch Power launched last April. Those of you that have still got the old GMA PDF report, that's not what we're talking about. But again, our understanding is that, again, 95% of the clubs on here will already have a Pitch Power report as well. So if you're still working off the old PDF, do check in and make sure that you've got the up-to-date Pitch Power report. There was a good question around the report ID only having 5 digits rather than 4, but our friend Andy at the Football Foundation has clarified 5 digits will work as well. So don't worry if you've got a 5-digit number on your report. Again, there was a good question about how many club members can have access to the Pitch Power report. So it is a downloadable report. You can share it as much as you like as a PDF, but also you can have as many club members as you like access Pitch Power. So any club member can create a login for Pitch Power and assign themselves to a club. So if you want to kind of track and monitor your Pitch Power reports just via the online portal, please do that as well. There are some questions around eligible materials. I'm not going to cover all that now. I would suggest if you're concerned about what an eligible material is, there are some good guidance within the Football Foundation FAQs themselves, but also pick that up with your case manager and your regional pitch advisor. They will be the best person to talk to specifically about what might be eligible. There was a little cheeky question in there, and I think you did cover it, Ted, but just to reiterate, the clubs that are eligible to apply for both machinery and maintenance will know that already. Okay, so your case manager should have been in touch with the club, and appreciate that they would have contacted one person per club probably. So there's a few, maybe 2 or 3 from some clubs here. Your lead person, your lead applicant will know whether you've been solicited for machinery or maintenance. You should know that already, and there are very few select clubs that we're encouraging to apply for both, but it is the exception rather than the rule. It will be one or the other. Some good questions around tenure. And again, our understanding and having worked through this as a pilot is it will be few and far between cases where we can't award this based on tenure. I would suggest there were some really complicated tenure arrangements that were being asked in the chat. Suggest that is picked up locally with your case manager. They will have the best guidance for you on that in terms of what to complete in terms of tenure. Question around split tenure. So again, having worked through this as a pilot, the form is not sophisticated enough to be able to for you to input split tenure. So if you've got one pitch that's freehold and one that you lease, please do pick one or the other. But when you get to the evidence section at the back end, the attachment section, please put the evidence for both in there. Just to reference as well, though, that you will have been solicited across most clubs will be in for either 1 or 2 pitches. So your eligible pitches are basic pitches. So if you've got a 5-pitch site, we're not talking about funding all 5. You'll be in for 1, 2, and the rare occasion the 3 eligible pitches. So again, it may be that you're just talking about 2 pitches that are side by side that are on common tenure. So do consider which are your basic pitches within your report before looking to evidence the tenure. There was a question around drainage. So just to be clear, drainage and maintenance are 2 different things. So maintenance in terms of applying materials and doing work to pitches is very different to a capital project in terms of invasive pipe drainage, slit drainage. So this project is really only around the maintenance side. If you feel you've got a case for drainage, again, that's one that you would pick up with your case manager. You're probably already in discussions with someone within our team around the need for drainage potentially. And lastly, there was a question around the HRGC kit package. So that is just one kit package that we wanted to present to you tonight. Our friends at Campy's are all very good. So again, if there's a piece of machinery that you're interested in, that you want to have a talk about, they're very, very good. They've got a hire purchase schemes. They've got Part X schemes as well. So we would encourage you to have a chat to Campy's about any of your machinery needs, and we can do it again via case manager. We can make that introduction if we need to, and put you in touch with Campy's. Those are the questions I had jotted down, Ted. I can see there's been a lot of activity in the chat while I've been talking, so I will try and get to those as well. Just the commitment is, if we don't get to your question in the chat now, we will review those and try and answer those post webinar.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kieran. And just great to get such interaction and such good questions in the chat. And as Kieran said, yeah, we will cover as much as we can, but the beauty here, there's a huge support mechanism for you with the teams over the next weeks and months, where we can really get into one-on-one specific questions around your club. Okay, I think we're just about on schedule. Conscious, as I keep saying, there's a huge amount of info, but we'll keep the pace up just to kind of bring things to a close. So, as Kieran said, as I've said a number of times, if you work with us on this, then we really do expect you to be successful in receiving a grant award. So to be clear, this will come from the Football Foundation, not the RFU. Okay, the official paperwork will come from the Football Foundation, and you'll be allocated, although we're here to support in the first place with the Grounds Management Association, you will be allocated a Football Foundation assessor that may talk to you direct and may clarify things within your application, and that's fine. Don't be alarmed by that. Touched on it earlier, the main concept of the application can be anyone within the club, but when we actually get the issue of the award letter through the Football Foundation to you, the people that sign it to accept it must be a combination of club secretary, club treasurer or club chair. Okay, and that is absolutely crucial. And if you get that right, that will save a lot of time again in terms of learning from the pilot that we ran. Okay, how do we actually get the money? So for maintenance, 14,400 awarded for one pitch. Again, just double it if it's two. You complete your conditions that might be attached to that, and then straight away the 3,600 is released for year one. Okay, so you get the money up front, and then as per box 4, you carry out the works as per the plan. Okay, you complete your 2 pitch power reports for the year in conjunction with the GMA pitch advisors, and at the end of the year you submit invoices to cover that 3,600. Okay, as long as you submit those and they're satisfactory, the funding for year 2 is released, and that cycle continues annually. So you get the money up front first, and then at the end of the year you demonstrate what you've done to get it released for the following year. It's really straightforward. For machinery, you get an award, in this example £12,000. Any conditions attached to that are achieved, and you then as a club order the machinery. You get the invoice from the supplier, you pay your 25%, you submit the invoice to the Football Foundation, they then pay the club, yourselves, the 75%, and you then settle the balance of the invoice. So again, really simple. Huge amount of guidance of that on the Football Foundation website, and this is a kind of quicker version just to kind of give you a summary of that. Anything else? Just talk about conditions. So there's one final bit just to touch on, and again, Kieran's just going to run us through this as we draw things to a close.
Yeah, team, this was one that caught us out. I'll be very frank with you in the pilot for this. So one of your pre-commencement conditions is for 2 members of each club to have completed the online GMA Level 1 course. So you will note, those of you that have looked at your pitch power report in detail, the elements in there will talk about maintenance, machinery, and education. And education for us is a really important part. There's no point having kit and guidance and a report if we don't know what we're doing with it and using it. So it is a really important part of it. You will need to evidence that 2 members from the club have done that course. Existing members that have already done the course, that is eligible. So if you've got someone that's already done it, please do dig out the certificate for that, or the evidence of attendance, because that is eligible. So we do need to ensure though that you are evidencing 2 members of the club have completed that. It is online, it's virtual. There is a small cost to that course, but the good news is that that is an eligible cost that you could reclaim through this program. So if you're in for pitch maintenance, you can reclaim the cost of the education that goes along with it. We also, as well, as the RFU, I've got 50% voucher code. So again, if you're not aware of the 50% off that course, do again touch base with your case manager. They'll be able to share that voucher code with you to get 50% off the course. So brings it down to something like £21 for the GMA level 1. So yeah, really important part, one not to forget. Just to flag, there are a hell of a lot of questions in the chat now. We're not going to get to them all. So again, if you haven't had a question answered, please do pick up with your case manager, which I think is going to be flagged by Ted very shortly, who our regional teams are.
Yeah, great. I guess it comes with a territory of 140 people on a webinar, but I'm sure we've answered the lion's share. In summary, this is a great opportunity just to stress from an RFU perspective, there's not a catch here. There's not like a secret thing hidden away that's going to come back and bite you. It is as it's been explained. It may feel a little bit complicated of the way that we've just talked through it, but actually when you get into it, the pieces do come together. The application form is straightforward, and do take your time with those 2 questions we've talked about. What's crucial, I think, just to pick up on the unanswered questions, help is on hand. This is just the start, as we said, in terms of the timeline. We are here to help. You will have an allocated case manager, the Grounds Management Association, pitch advisors, and the Football Foundation guidance will all have answers to the questions that you have specifically as a club. In terms of contacts, you see on the left there, the facility development team. One of those 8 people you will have received an email from, or if not, you'll receive in the next kind of day to confirm that they are your case manager. So they will become your main contact from our side of things. And then from the pitch power side of things and the technical side, again, each pitch advisor from each area will work bespoke with each club to help you on the technical elements of the application. Okay, next steps. Decide if you would like to be involved. So that's important. If actually you've heard from this tonight and you think we don't like the look of that, that's absolutely fine. But just do let us know and say this isn't for us, we're not going to pursue. Next thing I'd say is just rewatch this webinar on demand and take time to pause and check in on the bits that maybe you weren't sure about. And then get your pitch power report ready for reference. As Kieran said, some people you'll have them, know all about it. Some people might not. There's a very small number of people that haven't got theirs yet, and we know about that. But ultimately, if you've got it, get it. And you can see that having that number, 4 or 5 digits, that will help considerably with the application form. And then go to the Football Foundation website and begin your application. Okay, get stuck in and start to work out what's going to happen. If you've got any questions that we haven't been able to answer tonight or that crop up, deal direct with your RFU case manager. When is the funding available? Said we'd revisit this. Tonight is the introduction, just literally that, the introduction and the basics as I've explained. The portal goes live tomorrow, but there's no panic. You've got a couple of months to actually work this through with the support of the team. And what we're aiming to do is assess and review as quick as we can the backstop of these award letters in May and June. Alex Thompson, just to wrap things up, is going to check back in, just hopefully to see that some of those numbers have improved. Alex.
Yes, so this poll is now, it's exactly the same as we did at the start. So how confident are we feeling? Hopefully, you know, the information we've given you tonight has helped you move forwards. I can see people have jumped in pretty quick, but how confident you're feeling right at this moment. And let's say, if there's anything you do feel like you need, you can pick up with your case managers or drop it into the chat and we'll take it away. So I can see the majority of people have completed it now. So I'll just give it a last little push to give anyone else. But I think you'll be pleased to see this, Ted. I'm going to close it there. And I'll share the results. So we've got none, Ted, in 1 and 2. The majority now are extremely confident. 50% of the ones who completed it, followed by 5. So we're very happy with that, Ted. Good job, mate.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Alex. So the key thing now is just to make sure we follow up appropriately and get those over the line. But again, thanks for taking the time to do the poll. Okay, so we're there. It's been a kind of pretty high-paced evening with 2 minutes over, which hopefully you can understand and appreciate. It's obviously a challenging 140 odd people. I think Kieran and the team have done a great job in the chat. Apologies if you've got any questions that we haven't been able to answer tonight, but absolutely, you know, they will be answered over the next period of time using the contacts and the case managers we've shared. Good luck with this. As I said, this is a great opportunity. You've been invited to be part of it, so we really hope you move it forward and you get the benefit from it. A couple of thank yous from me, really, just to finish. Thanks to Kieran and Alex for their input and their support this evening. Thanks for the facility development team for their help in the chat. Thank you to Simon from the GMA. Real big thanks to Andy from the Football Foundation, who's given up his evening to come along and be with us. But most of all, obviously, thank you to everyone here from a club who've taken the time to join in, listen, ask questions, and hopefully set the tone for this introductory session to be able to make a successful application, get some funding into the club, improve the pitch, and make an impact on the wider club and activity itself. So we're really grateful for you taking the time. Please, we'll get this information to you. Please do take the time to share it on demand, and good luck with your application.